I've had a lot of requests to test ratcheting screwdrivers, especially those wanting to buy the new Ltt Screwdriver. So let's get the testing underway and see which brand is the best. In the first test, we'll see which ratcheting screwdriver has the best working arc swing. Then we'll see which screwdriver has the best and worst build quality. We'll also test the magnet strength. Finally, we'll test the failure load of the screwdriver bits, the screwdrivers, and then take a look inside. At a price of $16, the least expensive brand we'll be testing is made by Black+Decker. 3-position ratcheting mechanism, clockwise, counterclockwise, and locked. Textured handle helps provide a strong grip. End cap screws off for convenient internal bit storage. The end cap will hold 6 bits. Comes with 10 1-inch, 1/4-inch bits. And a magnetic bit holder on the front of the screwdriver spins freely. I found that the bit holder didn't always release the bit on the first or second attempt. The Black+Decker rattles quite a bit and there's a lot of slop in the shaft. The directional lever is a little bit stiff and hard to work with, especially if your hands are a little slick. And the screwdriver without any bits weighs 7.4 ounces. 9.1 ounces with all the bits. Let's kick off our first test to see which ratcheting screwdriver is the most efficient. Hand mobility varies a lot. I put together this next tester to measure the working arc swing of each of the screwdrivers. So let's compare the performance within a 50-degree space. I'll attach an Allen wrench to the handle and we'll see how many back and forth passes it takes to complete a full rotation. And the Black+Decker needs 14.7 back and forth swings to complete one circle. At a price of $17 is this 19-in-1 SATA brand screwdriver. The bits are held in place pretty loosely and they rattle quite a bit. It claims to have a smooth ratcheting mechanism with 3 settings including forwards, backwards, and locked. You can remove the back cap for convenient storage of bits. Includes 8 double-sided bits. The directional ring is pretty narrow and it's even stiffer and more difficult to use than the Black+Deckers. Quite a bit of rattling with the SATA. Without bits, the SATA weighs 7.7 ounces. Holding all the bits, the SATA is pretty heavy at 11.7 ounces. The SATA's ratcheting mechanism seems quite a bit tighter than the Black+Deckers, and the SATA moves into the lead at 12.5 passes. Also, the price is $17 is this Lennox 8-in-1 ratcheting screwdriver. Heavy texture in mid-zone provides maximum torque. The directional ring is pretty narrow, and it's also positioned too far inward towards the handle grip zone. You'll probably have to reposition your hand to change directions. All the double-sided bits are stored within a removable shaft. And there's quite a bit of rattle with the Lennox. 11 ounces for the Lennox, very close to 12 ounces with the bits. And the Lennox seems just as stiff and tight as the SATA. And the Lennox takes the lead from the SATA at only 12 back and forth passes. At a price of $18 is this Husky brand. Includes 30 bits. Pull-out storage compartment holds 6 bits. The metal ring for changing directions is pretty stiff and would be very difficult to work with if your hands were slick. There's quite a bit of slop in the shaft. Quite a bit of rattling with the Husky. 6.3 ounces for the Husky. 7.4 ounces with the bits. And the Husky seems to move much more freely compared to the first 3 brands. And the Husky barely edges out the Lennox at 11.9 back and forth passes. At a price of $20 is this Klein Tools 15-in-1 screwdriver. 6 double-sided bits can be stored within the handle. The directional ring is in a great location, but it is pretty stiff and it doesn't offer much grip. Not too much rattling with the Klein Tools. 6.9 ounces for the Klein. With the bits, 9.2 ounces. Klein Tools also moves very freely, just like the Husky. And the Klein Tools moves into a 2-way tie for second place with the Lennox at 12 passes. At a price of $24 is this Milwaukee brand. Compared to the other brands, the open style of the Milwaukee handle is a little bit uncomfortable. 6 bits can be stored within the handle. The directional lever is very easy to access and it offers plenty of grip. Quite a bit of rattling with the Milwaukee. 5.8 ounces for the Milwaukee. The bits add quite a bit of weight, 11 ounces. And the Milwaukee has very little slop within the ratcheting mechanism. And the Milwaukee moves into a commanding lead over the Husky at only 10 passes. At a price of $34 is this MegaPro brand. 6 double-sided bits can be stored within the handle. The directional ring is in a great location and it's very easy to grip. Very little rattling with the MegaPro. 5.75 ounces for the MegaPro. With the bits, the MegaPro weighs 7.7 ounces. And the MegaPro moves very easily, just like the Husky. And the MegaPro moves into the lead over the Milwaukee at only 9.5 passes. Very impressive. At a price of $34 is this Irwin 8-in-1 screwdriver. Accepts standard, double-ended, and power and insert bits. In order to access the directional ring, you'll probably have to reposition your hands, and the directional ring is pretty stiff. Not too much rattling with the Irwin. The Irwin weighs 11.1 ounces. With the bits, 12.1. And the ratcheting mechanism on the Irwin seems very stiff, just like the Lennox. And it also performed just like the Lennox at 12 passes. At a price of $36 is this Williams brand. Includes 5 bits. Ergonomically designed handle for greater user comfort and control. The directional lever is very easy to access and it offers great grip. The bits are stored loosely inside the handle, which allows for quite a bit of rattle. The Williams weighs 6.9 ounces. With the bits, 7.74. And the Williams moves very freely, just like the MegaPro. 11.8 passes is good enough to move into the 3rd position. At a price of $40 is this GearWrench 2-position screwdriver. Includes straight or pistol grip handle. 45-tooth ratcheting mechanism. Even includes 2 LED lights to illuminate the work area. You have to push in the 2 tabs on the side of the screwdriver to access the bits. 8.9 ounces for the gear wrench. With the bits, 9.9. Just like the Williams, the gear wrench also moves very freely. And the gear wrench barely edges out the Williams at 11.6 passes. At a price of $47 is this Wera brand. The grip has an anti-roll feature and has an integrated magazine that holds 6 bits. Fine pitch for a small return angle. The Wera is pretty tight and there's almost no rattle. The directional ring on the Wera is very easy to access and offers very good grip. 6.46 ounces for the Wera. With the bits, 7.5. And the Wera's ratcheting mechanism moves very freely, but there's a lot of slop. 14.5 back and forth passes for 1 complete rotation. At a price of approximately $70 is this Ltt Screwdriver. In case you're wondering, I did purchase the Ltt Screwdriver since I purchased all the products tested on the Project Farm channel. Includes 12 bits. Just like the MegaPro, the handle end rotates freely. All 12 bits can be stored within the handle. The directional ring is very easy to access and it offers very good grip. And the ratcheting mechanism is a highly modified MegaPro version to allow for less back drag and ratcheting noise. The Ltt Screwdriver is on the right and it's a little bit shorter than a standard 1-inch bit. So 12 of the shorter Ltt bits fit just fine in the handle, but only 6 of the 1-inch bits will fit. It's supposed to be able to handle up to 221 inch-pounds. We're going to test that. And there's very little rattling with the Ltt. And the Ltt screwdriver weighs 5.98 ounces. With all the bits, 7.4 ounces. And the Ltt looks and feels a lot like the MegaPro, but the ratcheting mechanism actually seems to have a little bit less back drag. And the Ltt barely edges out the MegaPro at 9.3 passes to move into the lead. At a price of $90 is this Snap-on brand. Comes with 2 bits. There's quite a bit of loose bit storage inside the handle. The knurling on the shaft offers very good grip. The directional ring on the Snap-on is very easy to access and offers very good grip, but it is a little bit stiff compared to the Wera. And the Snap-on weighs 8.2 ounces. With the 2 bits, 8.56. And there seems to be very little back drag with the Snap-on, but it does have quite a bit of slop. And it took 13 passes for 1 rotation. At a price of $144, the most expensive brand we'll be testing is made by PB Swiss. Includes 20 bits. And the directional ring on the Swiss tools is very easy to access and grip. Unfortunately, the Swiss tool screwdriver does not offer onboard bit storage. And the PB Swiss weighs 7.2 ounces. With all the bits, 10.8 ounces. And the PB Swiss moves very freely and seems to have a high tooth count ratcheting mechanism. 9.8 passes is good enough to move into the 3rd position. A ratchet that works efficiently, saves time and effort, and the Ltt screwdriver came in on top at 9.3 back and forth passes. However, the MegaPro and the PB Swiss performed almost as well at under 10 passes. When it comes to tool weight, without the bits, the MegaPro and the Milwaukee are the lightest at 5.8 ounces. Ltt 6, Husky 6.3, and Wera 6.5 ounces. If one includes the tool weight plus the weight of the bits, the Husky and the Ltt are the lightest at 7.4 ounces. Wera 7.5, MegaPro and Williams 7.7 ounces. A ratchet with a lot of back drag is very inefficient since it stops loosening or tightening action unless you give it some help. This next test setup will provide a very precise measurement of back drag. The shaft of each ratchet will rest on a metal platform to ensure each tool is level and to prevent side loading of the shaft. I'll rotate the handle until I hear a click, indicating that the ratchet mechanism is fully repositioned into the next gear tooth. For a budget screwdriver, the Black+Decker actually performed fairly well at very close to 30 grams or approximately 1 ounce. And the SATA has 8 times more back drag than the Black+Decker at 240 grams. Unfortunately, that much back drag really defeats the purpose of having a ratcheting mechanism on a screwdriver. And the Lennox has more than 4 times as much back drag as the Black+Decker at 129.5. So for those fasteners needing a light touch, the Lennox will require a lot of help from the user. For a budget screwdriver, the Husky held its own at 44.88 grams, which is good enough to move into 2nd place behind the Black+Decker. And the Klein Tools did better than the Husky at 39.89 grams, and the Black+Decker holds on to the lead. And the Milwaukee barely edges out the Klein Tools at 38.38 grams and moves into the 2nd position. And the MegaPro takes just a feather's touch to advance to the next tooth at only 19.48 grams to take the lead from the Black+Decker. Compared to the MegaPro, the Irwin has about 20 times as much back drag at over 319 grams. Just like the MegaPro, the Williams takes a very light touch to advance to the next gear tooth at only 13.88 grams to take the lead from the MegaPro. And the GearWrench has a couple of really innovative features with the pistol grip handle and the LED light, but it has more than twice as much back drag as the leaders at 39.8 grams. And the Wera performed better than average at 29.8 grams, but that's twice as much as the Williams. According to the Ltt team, they've made some significant changes to the design of the MegaPro's gearbox, and the Ltt moves into the lead at only 9.08 grams. Very impressive. And the Snap-on performed about the same as the Wera at 30.88 grams, which is 3 times the back drag as the Ltt. Considering the price, the Swiss Tools is a little stiff at 66.98 grams, or about 6.5 times as much back drag as the leader. When it comes to tool efficiency, low back drag tools will save a lot of time and effort, and the LTT came out on top at only 9.1 grams. However, the Williams also did exceptionally well at 13.9, MegaPro 19.5, and Wera 29.8 grams. A screwdriver with a great build quality will have very little side-to-side shaft movement, and this really helps with work requiring precision. And the Black+Decker has quite a bit of slop at 0.142 inches. Tools with a lot of back drag typically perform a little bit better on this test than low back drag tools, and a SATA performed well at 0.061 inches. And the Lennox also has a lot of back drag, and it has the least amount of shaft wobble yet at 0.048 inches. And the Husky has low back drag, but it also has about twice as much slop as the Lennox at 0.081 inches. And the Klein Tools has less back drag than the Husky, and it still performed a little bit better than the Husky at 0.072 inches. And the Milwaukee has about the same back drag as the Klein Tools, but it has the most slop yet at 0.152 inches. Even though the MegaPro has very little back drag, it still performed very well in this test and takes the lead from the Lennox at 0.041 inches. And the Irwin has the most back drag of all the brands, and that helped it on this test at 0.041 inches, the same as the MegaPro. And the Williams has even less back drag than the MegaPro, and it performed almost as well on this test at 0.048 inches. And the GearWrench really struggled on this test with far more slop than the other brands at over a quarter inch of movement. And the Wera has about 50% more side-to-side movement than the MegaPro and the Irwin at 0.066 inches. And the LTT borrows a lot of its design from the MegaPro, and it performed the same on this test at 0.041 inches to move into a three-way tie for first place. And the Snap-on has quite a bit more slop than the top three brands at 0.061 inches. And the PB Swiss barely edges out the Snap-on at 0.058 inches, but that's not nearly enough to move into the lead. If you're looking for a screwdriver for work that requires a lot of precision, the MegaPro, Irwin, and the LTT have the least amount of side-to-side shaft movement at 0.041 inches. The Lennox and the Williams also performed well at 0.048. Let's compare the amount of shaft rotation in the lock position at 4 inches from the shaft. And the Black+Decker allows for quite a bit of rotation at 0.708 inches. That's very close to 11 degrees of rotation. And the SATA performed better than the Black+Decker at 0.519 inches, or very close to 8 degrees of shaft rotation in the lock position. And the Lennox performed better than the Black+Decker, but not quite as good as the SATA at 0.637 inches. And the Husky barely edges out the SATA to move into the lead at 0.495 inches. And the Klein Tools couldn't quite match the performance of the Husky at 0.547 inches. And the Milwaukee moves into the lead at 0.308 inches, or just over 5 degrees of rotation. And the MegaPro also performed very well at 0.42 inches, which is good enough to move into the second position behind the Milwaukee. And the Irwin performed about the same as the Black+Decker at 0.718 inches, or around 11 degrees of rotation. And the Williams performed better than average at 0.556 inches, but that's almost twice as much rotation as the Milwaukee. With the two-position handle contributing to some movement, the GearWrench really struggled in this test at over an inch. And the Wera also struggled quite a bit on this test at almost an inch. Compared to the MegaPro, the LTT has a little bit different gearbox design and a lot less back drag, but that hurt it on this test at 0.745 inches. And the Snap-on performed very close to average on this test at 0.599 inches. And the PB Swiss is really dialed in at 0.17 inches, or only 2 to 3 degrees of rotation. In the lock position, the PB Swiss performed exceptionally well at only 0.17 inches of rotation. The Milwaukee finished in second at 0.308, MegaPro 0.42, and Husky 0.495 inches. Have you ever dropped a screw and then you couldn't find it? Using the bits that came with the screwdrivers, let's test the magnetic strength of each brand. And the Black+Decker isn't able to pick up a screw. And the SATA's magnet just isn't too strong at 8.1 grams. And the Lennox performed about the same as the SATA at 8.3 grams. And the Husky's magnet offers very little help, but it isn't able to lift a screw. And the Klein Tools performed about the same as the Husky. And the Milwaukee is not magnetized. And the MegaPro isn't magnetized either. And the Irwin struggled to get the scale's attention at only 2.58 grams. And the Williams is the first screwdriver in the testing so far that offers a productive magnet. 68.89 grams is plenty of strength. And the GearWrench has the second best magnet yet at 49.88 grams, or about 20 grams less than the Williams. And the Wera barely edges out the Williams at 69.8 grams to move into the lead. And the shorter bits that come with the LTT should really help it perform well. And the LTT takes the lead from the Wera at 89.9 grams, or about 20 grams better. And the LTT is the only brand that does include a dedicated magnet in the set. And the magnet is strong enough to lift the screw, the block of wood, and the scale at over 300 grams. And the Snap-on offers a pretty good magnet at 54.9 grams, which is good enough to move into fourth place behind the Williams. If you're looking for a screwdriver that won't drop screws, the PB Swiss did a phenomenal job at 199.48 grams, or more than twice as much as the competition. Very impressive. Using the bits that came with the screwdriver, the PB Swiss came out on top at 199.5 grams of magnetic pull. pull. LTT performed well at 89.9, Wera 69.8, Williams 68.9, and Snap-on 54.9 grams. And some ratcheting screwdrivers just don't do a very good job of maintaining a good grip on the bits. And the Black+Decker performed fairly well on this test at 989 grams or 2.2 pounds. And the SATA performed a little bit better than the Black+Decker at 1,227 grams or about 2.7 pounds. And the Lennox performed very close to the same as the SATA at 1,216 grams. And the Husky gave up a little bit sooner than the competition at 899 grams. And the Klein Tools performed well at 1,155 grams. And the Milwaukee also performed well at 1,181 grams, which is good enough to move into the 4th position. And the MegaPro performed about the same as the Husky at 890 grams. And the Irwin performed almost the same as the SATA at 1,220 grams to move into the 2nd position. And the Williams let go at 898 grams, which is very close to the same as the MegaPro and the Husky. And the GearWrench almost made it to 1,000 grams before letting go. And the Wera maintained the strongest hold yet, finally letting go at 1,436 grams or almost 3.2 pounds. And the LTT performed well in this test at 1,201 grams or almost 2.7 pounds. Unfortunately, the Snap-on gave up early on this test at 498 grams. And the PB Swiss has by far the strongest magnet for picking up screws, and it also came out on top on this test at 2,199 grams. Very impressive. And the screwdriver that has the best hold on bits is the PB Swiss at 2,199 grams or just over 4.8 pounds. The Wera finished in second at 1,436, SATA 1,227, and Irwin 1,220 grams. Using the factory supplied screwdriver bits, let's test the failure load of the Phillips No. 2 next. I'll be using a drill press with the wheel attached to the lever arms. With 20 pounds attached to the lever arms, there's about 140 pounds of downward force on the screwdriver handle. And the Black+Decker screwdriver broke the Black+Decker bit at 96 inch-pounds. A look under the microscope and the bit sheared without twisting the flutes. And the SATA is a lot stronger than the Black+Decker, with the bit finally breaking at 126 inch-pounds. The bit did experience quite a bit of twisting before it finally broke. And the Lennox also performed well at 115 inch-pounds or 19 inch-pounds more than the Black+Decker. The bit is extremely brittle and it snapped without any visible twisting. And the Husky performed well, making it to 120 inch-pounds when the bit finally broke. And the Husky bit isn't quite as brittle as the Lennox bit. And the Klein Tools is the first bit to experience cam out at 111 inch-pounds. And the bit is badly twisted, but it stayed in one piece. And the Milwaukee gave up a little bit sooner than average at 108 inch-pounds. The tip of the bit broke off and the flutes experienced some twisting. And the MegaPro moves into the lead over the SATA at 130 inch-pounds before camming out. The bit is badly twisted, and Irwin barely edges out the SATA to move into the 2nd position at 127 inch-pounds. Just like the Lennox, the Irwin bit is very hard and broke without significant bending of the flutes. And the Williams bit gave up a little bit early at 110 inch-pounds. And the bit is pretty brittle and it broke without twisting the flutes. And the GearWrench refused to break and it finally cammed out at 141 inch-pounds to take the lead from the MegaPro. Unfortunately, the bit is badly damaged. And the Wera also refused to break and cammed out at 118 inch-pounds. Compared to the GearWrench, the flutes on the Wera are more oval shaped and just don't offer as much grip as some of the other brands. And the LTT performed well, finally breaking at 128 inch-pounds. And the bit broke without twisting the flutes. And the Snap-on snapped off at only 105 inch-pounds or 9 inch-pounds better than the Black+Decker. And the $144 PB Swiss finally broke at 144 inch-pounds to take the lead from the GearWrench. Very impressive. And the brand that sells the strongest Phillips bit is the PB Swiss, which broke at 144 inch-pounds. The GearWrench performed almost as well at 141, MegaPro 130, LTT 128, and Irwin 127 inch-pounds. All of the screwdrivers outlasted the bits. So all the screwdrivers have more than enough strength for their bits, and there shouldn't be any risk of failure unless the screwdrivers are abused. So let's go ahead and abuse and break the screwdrivers so we have an excuse to take them apart. And the ratcheting mechanism on the Black+Decker first popped out of position at 213 inch-pounds, which is well beyond the hand strength of most people. And the SATA's ratcheting mechanism refused to give up and the handle finally broke at 477 inch-pounds. And the ratcheting mechanism broke free inside the handle of the Irwin at an eye-popping 552 inch-pounds. And the ratcheting mechanism on the Husky began grinding parts at 361 inch-pounds. And the ratcheting mechanism broke free inside the handle of the Klein Tools at 326 inch-pounds. And the gearbox inside the Milwaukee is more durable than the handle, 319 inch-pounds. And the gearbox in the MegaPro held up just fine, but the shaft finally failed at 252 inch-pounds. And the locking pliers destroyed the handle on the Irwin at 477 inch-pounds, but the ratchet still works just fine. The Williams is a very light tool with a very small amount of back drag, and it still performed very well at 404 inch-pounds. And the GearWrench also performed well at 468 inch-pounds before the ratcheting mechanism finally gave up. Trying to break the Wera took a lot more effort than anticipated. Even though the Wera screwdriver is very light and has low back drag, it held in there for a long time, finally letting go at 602 inch-pounds, the most of all the brands. And the LTT far exceeded its performance rating, making it to 295 inch-pounds before letting go. And the snap-on began grinding teeth at 335 inch-pounds, and the shaft finally failed at 433. And the ratcheting mechanism of the PB Swiss began spinning out inside the handle at 230 inch-pounds. And the ratcheting mechanism held up just fine. Let's go ahead and tear down a few ratchets, beginning with the gear wrench. And the gear experienced minor damage, and one of the two paws experienced damage to several teeth. And the gear and the paw design of the Wera seems very similar to the gear wrench. Just like the gear wrench, one of the paws experienced a lot of damage. And the plastic piece inside the MegaPro that fits into the slot appears to regulate the ratcheting direction and the amount of back drag. Instead of using a traditional paw design, the MegaPro uses a single paw that allows for a very low back drag. Let's take apart the LTT. And the LTT looks very similar to the MegaPro. And it looks like the main gear caused a lot of damage to the paw. And the paw on the left is supposed to have a sharp edge, but it's been ground flat by the gear. And the paw on the right has not experienced any damage. So is the MegaPro the same as the LTT? While they look the same, there's actually quite a bit of difference, beginning with the ratcheting mechanism housing. The plastic fitting on the left is from the LTT, and it's got a shorter profile than the MegaPro's, which is on the right. I think this helps explain the performance difference between the two brands. So the two screwdrivers are definitely not the same. So which screwdriver is best? I decided not to include the bit in the screwdriver destruction test in the ranking, since this really isn't a style of tool that's designed for rugged use. And the PB Swiss came out on top with the highest average ranking of 3.3. The LTT also performed very well with the ranking of 3.8, MegaPro 5.3, and Williams 5.5. If you're looking to buy a ratcheting screwdriver, what's more important than this ranking is to consider how you plan to use the screwdriver and which capabilities are most important to you. For example, maybe bit retention isn't that important to you. Getting rid of that category changes the outcome. A big thank you to everyone that requested this review, including those that wanted to see the LTT screwdriver reviewed. A lot of people want to know which screwdriver is the best, and I think that really depends on what you're looking for. All the videos in this channel, including this one, are viewer suggested. So if you have a video idea, I hope you take time to leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching. Please take care, and I look forward to next time.